Yesterday you saw a lot of those MNC stocks go up, stocks like BOC, etc., because of hopes that the new public float norms would lead to some delisting moves from some of those MNC stocks. Are those hopes exaggerated, or is there a grain of rationality in it? Jagannatha Thununguntla of SMC Capital and Ashish Tatar of Fort Share Broking join in. They've been studying this whole MNC universe quite closely. Gentlemen, thanks for joining in. Jagannatha, let me start with you. But did you see any overreactions yesterday, or do you think in some cases this optimism is justified that open offer-led delisting moves would be on the cards?
After this guideline, in most likely these companies may choose for delisting for sure, because it won't make sense having a 25% public shareholding Indian subsidiary. But having said that, even the companies choose for delisting, whether these delistings will really go through is the area of debate. For example, if you closely observe, there are 29 companies who are having MNCs who are having public shareholding less than 25%. Even in this 29 companies, if you closely categorize, in most cases it is appearing that the delistings may not go through because the wide public shareholding, as we have recently seen in the case of Goodyear. Of course, the anticipation of delistings, but as it got disappointed in case of Goodyear, the same scenario may emerge in the case of these cases as well. For example, in the cases like Lotte India, AstraZeneca, BOC India, Alpha Level. In all the cases, the public holding is the shareholding is quite varied. So that's why it's not right to paint every delisting with the same brush. One has to understand case-to-case basis. Otherwise, one may need to disappoint at the end of the day.
By the way, for one of the hopefuls, an exclusive flashing on your screens, apparently Oracle will not look to delist, but instead look to offload between 6 to 8% stake. This is, of course, coming on the back of the 25% public shareholding norm. So Oracle will be looking to sell about 7% stake in Oracle FinServ.
Sure. Jagannathan, do you have a list of 3 or 4 companies which you think are very solid delisting names?
In fact, while I agree with all the analysis, one thing I would like to bring to the point is most of these companies were reluctant guests to India, to Indian capital markets. None of them have listed in India in the anticipation of fundraising or in the anticipation for the privilege of listing in Indian capital markets. During the 1970s and 1980s, because of the guideline that there should be Indian listing status for for MNC if they want to do business in India. That's why all these guys have come in. So they have been reluctant guests in the first place. And all these guys, given a choice, would have delisted way back. Even then, they have never delisted. It suggests that even if they come with the delisting, there is very, very less chance for the delisting to go through. While pricing and while chances of while pricing and valuation, etc., everything is fine, but investors have to be very, very careful, because in case of delisting, you are not actually chasing the fair valuation. You are actually chasing the other shareholders. So one has to, because whether the promoter accepts or not is a second scenario. The first scenario is whether the bids are going to come or not. In almost in all the cases that Ashish has suggested, somehow it is appearing that in all the cases probably there may not be sufficient subscription, because not even in single company of those 5 companies there is not even single shareholder with 1% or more subscription holding. So all of them are typical cases like Goodyear, and in fact the cases where if the companies choose delisting route, just chances of going ahead. One is Fairfield Atlas, where Reliance Capital is holding 8.5%. Means if Reliance Capital alone participates in the delisting, the Fairfield Atlas delisting goes through. So the chances of conversion is very high. Similarly, the case of Blue Dart, where the SBI mutual fund and IDFC mutual fund and one more investor, these 3 guys put together are holding 12.5% stake. So if these 3 participate, almost their delisting will comfortably go through. And if 3M India or Berger Paints or Cambridge Solutions or Thomas Cook, if any of these parties also choose, the chances of conversion is very high. Having said that, we have to remember very, very carefully, it is good to chase delisting pricing, but at the same time watch the other shareholders and their movements very, very carefully. It's not the promoter we have to chase, because it's very clear all these companies being MNCs, there is no question of promoter going back, but only risk is the investors themselves not bidding in the reverse book building.